Good morning, everyone. I am Todd Obert, President and CEO of Productive Corporation. I'm joined alongside me here, virtually and technically, with Mr. Ben Ellering, Senior Systems Engineer from Sophos. Today, we're going to talk about the Security Heartbeat, Sophos' new technology, getting your firewall and endpoint to work together. If you have been to our events in the past, you know how we roll it, right? We like to talk more about technology and less about irrelevant stuff, although it is not beyond me to digress and get into an irrelevant topic. But that being said, I'm going to keep it tight today for your sake and for Ben's sake. We're going to meet Productive in 1 minute, and I'm going to hand over the microphone over to Ben. He's going to talk about a couple slides on Security Heartbeat and what the technology is from a high level, and then we're going to do what we all really want to do is take a look, and we'll see a live demo of the technology. If you have a question, utilize the chat feature, and we will get your questions answered straight away. But for now, let's meet Productive. Well, who is Productive Corporation, you say? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Productive Corporation provides security and storage solutions, mainly software and services for mid-sized companies. We have a dedicated team that helps you with technical questions, licensing, and can really get you down the road so you don't have to navigate that scary World Wide Web all by yourself. We also implement, test, and optimize the products that we sell. We do everything from a high-level VA or security assessment to a penetration test to UTM optimization and implementation, AV health check, configuration assistance. We help you with the infrastructure and the infrastructure products. We also produce a lot of third-party content for the mid-market, tips and tricks, talking about trends. You can find all of this at productivecorp.com/content or on our YouTube channel. The bottom line is we have the resources to help you find it all at productivecorp.com or shoot us an email, help@productivecorp.com, 800-726-4099. We're here to help. And one of the ways that we help is by putting on these educational web events, right? We do a lot of knowledge series stuff, and when there is cool and new product stuff out, we talk about that. So today, we're talking about Sophos and their Security Heartbeat. This is something that is, you know, a leading technology in the space, right? Taking the endpoint and the next generation firewall and having them talk together and doing it in a very unified way. There's some other folks out there that are doing this or positioning themselves as doing it, but I think you'll find that Sophos is really delivering on the promise of tying the gateway and the endpoint together with technology, with security and remediation. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Ben Ellering, who is the Senior Systems Engineer for Sophos, and I am very excited to hear what he has to say. So take off that you know, snowmobile suit and ski mask and take it away, Ben.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Todd. Yeah, so as we kind of go through and take a look at the Security Heartbeat, there's a couple things that really drove us to making sure and wanting to make these products work together. You know, when you look at the threats that are out there, the things that you need to protect yourself from in today's environment, that they're very adaptive sort of threats. They find ways to get around different parts of the system. You know, when you look at your different point solutions, there is inherent gaps within those technologies, not just because of maybe a lack or a feature that they're lacking within the technology, but just in the fact that they don't work together, that they don't share information. So without that security and that synchronized component, you really have a number of gaps in your environment. So what we wanted to do was make sure that when we are identifying threats, we can accelerate that threat discovery. We can identify where is it coming from, and then we can automate it, the response from an endpoint and from a firewall standpoint or a perimeter security device. And we'll see that through the demo. As how we can actually make that life easier for the administrator, give them time back in their day and let them rest easier, knowing that, that the Security Heartbeat is going to add a much higher level of security in their environment than what they're accustomed to. If we want to go ahead and we can hit to the next slide here. So it consists of, the Synchronized Security consists of two main components from Sophos. One is our next-gen endpoint, the next-gen endpoint that is managed from our Cloud Management Console. This is an industry-leading product in its own right. So there's a lot of components that we take a look at within the next-gen endpoint. These are all the different engines. We'll just kind of do a real quick overview of the engines as we go through it and take a look at the endpoint. And really, this is what is installed on that computer, that Windows computer, that Mac computer, the device that the users are using. When you look at the things that we want to take a look at from an endpoint standpoint, the upper right corner, we have basically like an IOC. Essentially, it's like a correlation engine and an events collector sort of engine where we take a look at what's happening on the system. We want to understand everything that's going on end to end. So you take a look at things like incorrect login attempts. Those happen all the time on systems. That in and of itself might not be a big deal, but you pair that up with some other events that might happen, and now it may lead to some sort of a compromise or some sort of an event that we need to be aware of and be able to control. The next, kind of moving left on that screen to the web protection. This is actually, protecting users when they're going to websites. This isn't web filtering. We do have web filtering technology as well, but this is really protecting the users when they go to websites that they're allowed to go to. A couple of specific events or things that we're looking for in that type of an engine are things like malvertising events. Essentially what that is the bad guys buy a legitimate ad from an ad broker. That ad gets served up in a website, MSN, whatever it might be. What that ad does is it contains malicious code where it'll go through and it'll ask that system any number of questions, any things that they want to know about that system. Maybe what browser did they connect with? Maybe what versions of Java are they running? What operating system? Based on the information they get back from that client, they're going to send an exploit kit that is specific to that particular device. So those are some of the things, and the malvertising events are some of the things that we want to take a look at within web protection. The reputation engine, again, all these engines correlate, and they're going to share information. This comes into play in a lot of different scenarios. You look at websites, where the user is going. That website, does it have a good reputation? Does it have a bad reputation? Is it a website that's used quite often? MSN, Google, that sort of stuff. Those are going to have different sorts of reputations. And you pair that up with what's another engine, an application tracking. Think about things like Java updates. Users are very accustomed to seeing Java updates. Say that there is a Java update. The user goes through and says, okay, yeah, I want to go ahead and update my version of Java. What we want to do within the application tracking and the reputation engine and the emulator engines is look at a lot of different things that's happening through that process. One is it actually a legitimate Java update? So we're going to take a look at that application and see when it's okay, yes, it's it's an old version or it's a version that should be updated, and then we're going to look at the reputation. Where are they pulling the update from? Is it coming from a reputable source? Is it coming from a source that should be serving up the Java update? And then once all that is passed, so we run it through the emulator. That's going to take a look at what does that do. So as they're running that installer, it's going to make these registry changes. It's going to write these files to disk, that sort of stuff. And the emulator is kind of in the bottom left side of that component. But again, all of these engines are going to share information. So those are some of the things that we're looking for across the application tracking and the emulator and the reputation as well. Application control is really the ability to allow or disallow the use of certain programs on a computer. A couple examples, you can say, I only want to use Internet Explorer or Firefox or Safari, and any other web browser we're not going to allow to be utilized. What most people do is in the application control is, let's just block toolbars. Toolbars are a pain in the butt. They cause a lot of administrative calls, and they slow users' browsers down. So let's just, in the application control, just say no toolbars are allowed, and then we won't allow the toolbar to run. The next, the threat engine. That is the signature engine. That's the engine that really kind of makes a lot of press and gets a lot of bad press in the industry. You think about signature-based antivirus. Those are some terms or some things that people have said as antivirus is dead. Well, really what they're referring to is signature-based antivirus is not going to be as effective as it needs to be in today's environment, but you still need to have that component in that engine because it is a very efficient engine and it is a very accurate engine in being able to identify known threats and known vulnerabilities within a system. Sophos, we've been doing this for over 30 years, and the threat engine, that's kind of the one that's been around the longest. So that's really what that component is. Live Protect. Live Protect, if you take it to industry standard terms, is going to be things like zero-day threat prevention. That's what the Live Protect does. There's some other things that play a role in our Live Protect, and we'll see that in the next slide when we start looking at the endpoint or at the firewall. But a Live Protect is that ability to protect from things that we aren't sure of, we haven't seen before within the environment. The emulator,
hey, Ben.
a little bit, yeah.
So is all this stuff just configured out of the box, or is there a lot of configuration that needs to happen to get this rolling?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is all this stuff is already set up in the Cloud Console. And if we take a look, and hopefully we'll have time, and I'll actually show you the policy, and I'll point out what this slide represents within the console itself. Within the Cloud Console, when you look at it, it looks very simple, and without knowing that all of this stuff is happening behind the scenes, you kind of miss all the different protections that are already configured for you and ready to go. So yes, these are not individual components that you need to go through and configure in the Cloud Console. They're all built into the engine, and I'll definitely show you that in the policy.
All right, cool.
Yeah, all right. So, and again, emulator, an industry term is going to be sandboxing-like technologies, where we're going to, do some extraction and take a look at what it is that's going to happen within that particular executable when you launch it. The HIPS, or the runtime, or the behavior protection engine, that's important for a lot of things as it relates to ransomware. Crypto locker, the new Tesla trip that's out, those are really going to be caught in a lot of those sorts of engines because you need to understand encryption that's being done for business purpose versus malicious intent. The ransomware issues, they're using industry standard encryption technology, so you can't use a signature to identify that because you're going to block a lot of legitimate encryption then. So you have to have other techniques, and that's where our runtime behavior, along with the other engines, really start to come into play. A device control is just the ability to allow or disallow the use of USB drives, removable media, that sort of stuff. The next one, malicious traffic detection, that is used for taking a look at process modification. So there's a lot of advanced threats and new things that are out where maybe Internet Explorer is running in memory, and you go to a website and that process gets manipulated. And now while it's running, maybe it's sending out bad traffic, or it's capturing certain sorts of data that's on your system and sending that out. The process manipulation is really hard to detect because once you close Internet Explorer, it's gone. It's no longer on the system. They launch Internet Explorer and it's clean until they go to another website that might have that process manipulation built in to be able to take advantage of some of those advanced threats that are out there. And then the Security Heartbeat, that is the component where we're going to share a lot of information with the perimeter device. And we're going to make some intelligent decisions on what we want to allow that system to do. And that's one of the main demos that we'll see here once we actually get into looking at the interfaces. And really that's going to, again, send a lot of threat intelligence, a lot of threat data, you know, and then share that between systems. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that the next component as it relates to the firewall also has that security heartbeat component. So that's where the synchronized security comes in, where the endpoint and the firewall are talking. This is more than what other companies have been doing and what has kind of been out there in some limited fashion, where you look at network access control, or where you're looking for making sure that your antivirus is running before you let them get to the internet. Yeah, that's what we're doing, but we're doing a lot more than that. We're sharing the threat intelligence, and we're making intelligent decisions on, are we going to allow that device to go to that site based on the information we're getting from the heartbeat. This is a perimeter protection device, so this is a UTM, or the next gen firewall, you know, kind of use the marketing term. If we take a look at this, you'll notice that there's a lot of different, or a lot of similar technologies when we look at protection. And it really comes down to looking at the threat from different levels. So we have the firewall component. That's fairly straightforward. Firewall has been around a long time. That's your stateful packet inspection. We have the intrusion prevention system, or the IPS engine. Again, that's been around for a while. We're looking at known malicious you know, attempts where they're trying to exploit something. Web filtering is just that, where we're going to allow or disallow the use of or letting them get to Facebook, or you know, whatever it might be. That's URL filtering. Email security, it is a very advanced email security device as well, where that particular component, we're going to look for spam, we're going to look for, you know, bad messages, and we can also do encryption within the email security component. Routing is, you know, routing. You have a network and you need to set up your routing. If you need to do BGP, or if you have OSPF, some of your dynamic route capabilities, that's all going to be built into that routing engine. The threat engine, again, is going to be very similar to the antivirus engine, where we're looking at known signatures, known issues within a data flow. Proxy, these devices can be configured for true full proxy, so we can proxy traffic as well. Selective sandboxing, again, that's going to be emulator. That's going to be that sort of technology where a file is being downloaded. We don't have enough information about that download. We might want to send that off to a sandbox to take a look at a little bit more information. Application control. So this is a complementary feature to the application control on the endpoint, but this is really at the network layer, right? So this is what the next gen firewall has really kind of been developed for, is looking at layer 7, being able to identify applications within the same port, like port 80. You're going to internet, you're using the Internet Explorer, that's the actual application on the workstation. But within the Internet Explorer, there's other, you know, sub-applications or other things that can be run. You know, you look at Facebook, you look at Facebook chat, Hulu, Netflix, those sorts of things. That's the application control that we're referring to there. DLP is looking at data that's leaving your network. Does it contain social security numbers? Does it contain credit card information? If it does, what do you want it to do? ATP is advanced threat protection, or advanced and persistent threats. Those are for those advanced threats that are very slow, and they try and get around different parts of security systems and environments. We're going to take a look at that, and you know, we're going to be able to block, and that's also one of the things that we'll see in the demo today, is an actual ATP attack that gets triggered. And then again, the security heartbeat, again, sharing that information between the endpoint and the firewall, and you know, our labs where we have all that automation built in. So those are the components. So we can definitely go to the next slide if you like. I don't know if there are any questions on anything that we've covered to this point, but really this is how that those systems work together. So we can see a lot of different components, and basically we can see the connecting point with the security heartbeat. Really, this is going to make a lot more sense once we actually show the demo and we can see how it looks. So really, this is just a summary of how we're going to, you know, how we're going to actually implement this. And the nice part about this sort of thing is when something happens, we can choose from a firewall standpoint, what do we want it to do with that endpoint? Are we going to let it get to the internet, or are we going to block it? So This is really essentially the demo that we're going to actually see in live real-time data in my environment. So
yeah, let's check that out. I mean, I think that's the kind of the cool thing, Ben, right? Is to show this technology. And I think when you're going through and showing the demo, I would focus on, what are these guys seeing out of the box, and how can they see what's working, and showing them some of the stuff, like you show that slides of, what's happening behind the scenes, right? So
exactly.
The idea is to make it simple to use but very powerful. So.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Are you able to see my screen? Should be the Sophos website.
I'm looking at the Sophos Cloud, the website.
Good deal. So yeah, what we're representing and what we're going to take a look at is really these two products. It's this firewall with this endpoint. Those are the two components that have the synchronized security. They are industry-leading products on their own, and then you put them together, and there's a lot of advanced things that we're going to be able to do here, and that's what we'll show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into my cloud console. If we take a look, this is the console that is where all of my endpoints are reporting. So we take a look in the console here. This is going to give me a summary of my environment. The nice thing is my environment right now should be fairly clean, so everything looks good. I don't have any alerts. Everything's functioning the way that I want. I can go in and I can take a look at my devices. So these are all the devices that are sending traffic through my network, whether they're online or offline. It gives me some good health information. I can see the different operating systems, so Windows, Mac, Android, iOS. Those are all in my environment here. You can also take a look at the users. So these are the users I am integrated with Active Directory with. The way that the cloud works is one license is going to apply to the user. So this user has 5 different devices, which means it's one license for that user. This user is getting a multiple group of policies. It's getting a web filter policy. It's also getting the antivirus policy. If we were to take a look at the main policy that it's getting, as we go through and create policies, we give it a name. We say the features we want to have active. We apply it to users and groups. This next section, this is that PowerPoint where it has all of those engines. So you can see all of that stuff, that security made simple. We have a lot of complex and a lot of industry-leading technology behind the scenes, but we want to make it easy for administrators. So that's why this is kind of an oversimplification of the screen as it relates to being able to understand what's happening behind the scenes. So that's kind of that component that we want to refer to. It's really, again, just a matter of turning on the features, and you get all of those capabilities on the back end. The next section, again, is that application control that I mentioned within the endpoint, where I'm blocking all the toolbars. There's no need to allow these toolbars to run, so let's go ahead and block them within my environment. We'll also notice that I have some peripheral control, so I'm allowing certain devices, my mobile device configuration, so I can push email, push wireless configuration, enforce pins or passwords on those mobile devices. And that's what I have set in my policy. So that is the policy. This next section, this is where the synchronized security component comes in, so network. This is where I tie my firewall to my cloud account. Those two are going to talk together. You'll notice, again, there's a lot of other different reports that I can get. There's other things that can happen here, but really that's what we want to demonstrate is the synchronized security. We can see my policy that I have enforced. We can see that I'm synchronized to the network. This is the network device. This is that UTM, that firewall component. Here is the heartbeat. So I have 5 computers right now that are showing the heartbeat. We'll go through a couple of quick configs here. And a couple of screens to take a look at how this device is configured. So when we see the synchronized component work, hopefully you'll be able to correlate the policies.
And so Ben, can you, you're going to get into the, I see the reports down there in that dashboard, but you're going to get into what kind of push reports are there and how they notify you, or can you spend a little time on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at the reporting and how that's all flowing. And that's actually what we're going to cover now, and then I'll show you how the policies that are enforced to get these reports.
Oh, okay.
So the dashboard and the way that we've created this stuff, again, we want to make this easy for administrators. So all of this stuff I can click on, and it's a hyperlink. This is going to show me my live users. So we have patented the 8th layer of the OSI, or the identity layer, and that's what we've really defined and designed this product around, is being able to look at the identity. We can see my users, we can see how much traffic, when they've connected, we can see how much traffic, the upload and download, and these are integrated with Active Directory. The help desk user is the main one that we're going to be doing some of the demos of. So again, those are just live users. I just clicked on that right from within my dashboard here, and it brought me to that section. We also have what's called the UTQ, or the User Threat Quotient. This is important, and I really like this report because as an administrator, you always know who your high-risk users are in your environment. We can see my high-risk users here. This is a way to quantify that. So I can go in and I can take a look and I can see, okay, Jill is a high-risk user over the last 7 days, the last 14 days, the last 1 day. Who are my risky users? In this report, I can use to give to the manager and say, these users are risky because of their activity, or this is what they're doing. This is generating the report on the fly. The nice thing is we don't see that there's any viruses or any malware events, so that system is clean. The reason why this user is considered risky in my environment is because they're using Tor browsers, anonymizers. They're trying to get around web filters, whatever it might be. Obviously, we can block these sort of things. We can block it based on a website. We can also block it based on application. So we can definitely create policies around that as well. But again, the nice part is I'm able to produce that report and say the reason why this user is risky because of these sorts of things. This user is the user that I do all of my demos with as it relates to threats. So they have a very high number of events. So we can see DNS events, we can see web-based events, we can see the events themselves, where they were generated from. You can also see the different types of websites, again, also trying to use anonymizers or Tor browsers. So it gives us a lot of information from the system. If I want more detail, so that's great to look at the user threat quotient, but I actually want to see what users are doing on my network. I can go in and I can generate these reports. These are all reports that I'll generate on the fly. I can choose, let's actually look over the last week or week and a half. Let's do the top 10. And as I click on these things, it generates the report on the fly. You'll notice that we can download these reports. We can bookmark it, so I always come back to this report, and we can also create a schedule for this report. And what it did is it ran through and said, okay, this is how much traffic coming from my LAN to the LAN, or the Wi-Fi to the LAN, all my different sources, destinations. You'll notice everything on here I can click on and I can start drilling down. I can see application categories, so YouTube, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. I see all of those applications, and I can drill down and see, okay, who's using them, what's happening in my environment. You can see how much traffic is being generated. This was over the last week. What happens is I've only chosen the top 10 here. So what we'll do is we'll actually summarize anything that's not in the top 10 in this NA category. We'll roll it out. So if I was to expand that, NA category is going to shrink, and I'm going to see more applications listed there. I can also see the risk level, again, how much bandwidth. I can see my users, so all the identity information. Here are my high-risk applications, risk levels. Again, I want to run a report and see, okay, I want to see everything that Jill did or everything that Patty did. What did they do? I can click on Jill, and this is going to run a report for Jill. Here we can see it filtered out. This is going to be the top 5, and this will be a certain date and time. And again, I can expand that. I can see what was Jill doing, why, what type of information, where's geolocations, where's all her traffic going. See Hulu, Skype. You get a lot of good detailed information. This is an application report. If I want to look at a web usage report, I can also take a look at my web usage reports. Same sort of thing. When we go in and we take a look at the report information, top 5, top 10, again, let's expand the date so we get more data here. Again, generate. This is all done on the fly as we're looking at it real time here. So we can see, again, portal sites. We can see different sorts of, there's some objectionable sites as well. So if I want to see who's doing that or what they are, I can click on it, and this is going to run a report for objectionable sites. This is the top 5, top 10, the users. So help desk is a pretty big offender here. We can see there's some sexually explicit. We can see the website that they're going to. And again, all of this stuff I can click on, and it's going to start drilling down. That's all a lot of the nice detailed reports. You'll notice there's a lot of other built-in reports here. We can also go and you can do custom reports as well, but a lot of ability to get that data out of the system. I think that's as important as being able to control it, as you need to be able to know what's happening in your environment. So how do I get all of that data? Yeah, was there a question?
No, just trying to see which one of your family members were the biggest offenders.
Yeah, exactly. But the nice thing is pretty much all of those are fictional users. Jill, Patty, John, those are all my non-real users. It's a little scary. I don't want to do demos with live family data. It might find
that's
they don't want to know.
Probably good for the family. It's probably good for the family relations.
Yeah, exactly. So what I did was I clicked on this policy section. So this is where I'm going to enforce all of my policies. We have three main rules or rule types. I have a business rule. So this is an inbound rule. I have web servers. I have email servers. I'm going to create a business rule that's going to allow that traffic inbound. I have my traditional network rule, where I have specific devices, specific sources, destinations that I want to apply policy to. What really happens is most of the rules, what we want to do is an identity-based rule. So here we can see my help desk users, my managers, users in finance, if they're going to Salesforce. I can see how much traffic is being generated on a rule basis. So this is also nice. If I want to expand and see, okay, what is this doing? I can expand this and say, okay, if finance users are going to Salesforce, I have a couple of requirements here. One is I'm requiring that they have a heartbeat and their heartbeat is clean. So Salesforce is where all of our customer data resides. I want to make sure that in order for them to get access to that customer data, they have to be known clean. They have to be running antivirus. It has to be up to date. They can't have any events going on in their system. If they do, I'm not going to let them get to Salesforce, and that's what we'll see. We actually won't see this exact demo. We'll see my help desk user where they can't get to the internet. But again, if I want to expand this, that's a specific, my finance users going to a specific source, Salesforce. Here's my finance users just using the internet. So if we look at what I'm allowing, the way that we create the rule is you give it a name. When we do an identity-based policy, we turn this on. It's as easy as that. Obviously, I'm integrated with Active Directory. I have my authentication servers, but I'm looking for my finance users. If I want to apply a rule to a group, or even an individual user, I can do that. So you can see the users show up here. So I could say, I just want to apply this rule to that user. You'll notice here's our traditional source, your firewall. Where are they coming from? What are they going to do? And you'll notice what time of the day. So we get very flexible in our schedule. So as we go through and take a look at these features, take a look at the scheduling aspect and all flexible you could create your policies. So this is, again, finance. The global rule is all the time. They're going to be able to go ahead and use this rule. Where are they going? This is the internet. Again, you can specify specific sources, VLANs, whatever it might be, and the action is going to be allow. I'm also going to create a NAT rule. So when they go to the internet, use this address. You'll notice that we can actually get really flexible. So my finance users, we could define, if you had two internet connections, I could say my finance users can use which one is their primary internet connection, which one is their backup internet connection. So I can define, multiple internet connections, and I can say who gets to use what internet connection, throughout that whole process. Can also set up quality of service. Next is turning on looking for the bad stuff. So I'm going to do malware scanning. I'm going to look at HTTP, FTP, HTTPS. Here's where I'm going to set up application control, where I want to control certain applications that users are going to be able to do, in this case, my finance users. We want you to be able to do everything from within the policy. So if there's a new application control policy I want to create here, I can click Create New. If I want to edit the policy, I can edit it right from here. So I don't have to go to multiple different screens to try and figure out what that is. Here you'll notice I'm getting fairly detailed for my finance users. These are applications that they can't use. If we were to take a look at this, the way that I have this set up is I'm not allowing them to use gaming, instant messaging, proxy, peer-to-peer. I'm not allowing them to use those applications. But it's not just all applications. It's those applications that have a high or a very high risk level. Those are the ones that I want to deny access to. Say I want to go ahead and just deny access to all of them, and Maybe there's a specific application that I want to control. I can look at applications. I could choose an individual application and say, I just want to control something within Facebook, Facebook chat, Facebook post, whatever it might be within my configuration that I want to go ahead and set up. And as I expand these, you can see I get different rules and different applications that start to show up in my list here. But the other thing that's nice is I could deny just Facebook chat or just Facebook usage during work hours. Maybe they can use it over their lunch period. So I can set specific application rules and specific time policies based on that application. So we can be very granular there. And that's my application control rule.
And how long did it take you to get that tuned in, Ben? Is that
it's really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, essentially we get all the reports, right? So it's already telling us this, and I already know for the most part this is the sort of stuff that I want to block. So I just go in and I add a rule, and you just choose your categories. So again, I wanted to block these. They really don't need to do online gaming. I could probably say all risk levels, but I just wanted to block anything that I know had a very high or a high risk. That way I know that, it's going to be a little bit, still going to let them do some online gaming, so I'm not going to, take all their fun away. I'm just going to mitigate the risk in my environment. And that's what I've done here.
Gotcha.
Again, it's really easy to set up. Next, web filtering. So we have a bunch of pre-selects again, no explicit content, no ads or explicit content. I've created a specific finance filter. If I want to edit this, I can go ahead and edit the policy. You'll see here we can also be very granular in this, where I can also set schedules on a certain category for a time of day. So there's a new category that I want to block. These are all the different categories I can choose and I can select from. You can see there's a bunch of them here. Say I wanted to make sure that they couldn't do any personal or dating, stuff during work hours. Fine. After hours, go ahead. So I can go ahead and deny that during the work hours. After hours are going to be allowed to get there. So very granular as well in the schedules. And again, this is web filtering. Really easy to set up as well. Fairly standard, fairly straightforward when you look at categorization. And that's my policy. And then I have, IPS, protect from the bad stuff. I'm logging everything, and here's where I'm requiring that heartbeat is active and that they have a minimum of a yellow status, which means maybe they've missed one update. Any number of things can trigger a yellow status, but as long as they're yellow or better, they can go ahead and use the internet. So that's the security heartbeat component and how that ties in. If there aren't any questions, we'll actually start taking a look at an end user now. So, and this happens to be my help desk user. Like I said, my help desk user tends to generate a lot of the events. So you can see I can go ahead and I can use the internet. Everything's good. This help desk user is one of the 5 that has a good security heartbeat. Again, internet's good. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to stop the security heartbeat. So we're going to go ahead and kill that process. And what we're going to do is we're going to see this is going to go to a 4. So it's no longer checking in. So what we're doing in these scenarios is I'm going to launch an attack. So this is going to be an attack that happens in a lot of environments. This is going to be an advanced attack. I'm going to launch it from this system, and we're going to see a few things happen. You'll notice that it failed. So that's good. My firewall is going to trigger here, and we're going to see this go red here in a little bit when my refresh rate catches up. But essentially, that's what we have in a lot of environments today, where the firewall did its thing. That's great. We blocked that event from happening. But when we know how these advanced threats work, that's really only part of the picture, right? Because this one failed, but you'll notice this process or this application is still running. So what they do in a lot of cases is, okay, that one failed, now let's try this. They have different techniques that they're going to try and launch in the back end to try and get around the firewall, to make sure that the firewall isn't, being, and once they're able to figure that out, then they're going to go ahead and, download more malware, do any number of things. They'll know where they've been able to penetrate or be able to get through the firewall because, again, they've used different techniques and they've finally found one that was successful.
Yeah, they're essentially looking for all the open doors and, unlocked windows.
Yep, exactly. So here again, you'll notice a great firewall did its job. You'll notice that it's just this is the host that it blocked. There was some sort of a generic attack that happened, and okay, so I need to go look at this computer and go figure out what was going on. I need to kill that process and make sure that everything is back into that clean state before the user is allowed to use their connection. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run this with the Security Heartbeat. So we're going to see some different things happen here. So essentially, again, everything's going to be functioning here. What happens is when the heartbeat is accessed or enabled, it's going to go and it's going to do a quick system scan. It's going to make sure, okay, it's up to date. This is going to be updating, and this is going to go to a 5 here, again, when my refresh catches up. And the computer, again, all is good. We're going to launch this exact same attack, but now we have the heartbeat. We have the two components working together. You'll notice a couple things. And again, in the first place, the firewall blocked it. That was good. Now as we do this, kind of keep track, and this happens fairly quickly. So I'm going to launch it. You'll notice what happens is the process was killed and we had a little pop-up here. So the firewall just said, okay, what you just did was bad. I want you to stop it. So it killed the process. I also want you to tell me what it was that created that event, and I want you to clean it up. So right now I can't get to the internet because I have one system at risk, I have one source blocked. It is in the process of cleaning up the malware event, and right there you can see that that application is gone. As soon as all of that is clean, I'm going to report back to the system and say, okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go back from a 1 to a 5 where everything's clean. I'm able to get out to the internet. It's good. Everything is back to normal. The event was stopped. The malicious content and file was deleted or taken care of or remediated. Now if I take a look at what it did is here we can see that the source, I can see the computer. Now it's got a green heartbeat, so that's all good. I can see the path of the offending file. So it was all taken care of and it was all fixed for me. And while it was in that state, basically the computer couldn't get to the internet. Once everything was remediated and everything was back in a good state, it could now then get back to the internet and everything was good. So that's that component. Now I'm going to launch a similar, a different attack, and this is going to be where the endpoint finds the attack. The firewall doesn't know about it. I'm going to launch an event here. The endpoint's going to detect the event. We're going to see basically what's going to happen on the endpoint is we're going to see some things pop up here, quarantine it. We're going to see this is going to, again, go to a thread that was blocked. I'm going to be in a red status, which means I cannot get to the internet. So again, now firewall says you're not good, you aren't allowed to get to the internet, so I'm blocked. And what that's going to do for you in all those environments is making sure that we can keep the system clean and we can keep the systems running the way that we want to make sure that we're not adding any events to the fire here. We're cleaning things up, making sure everything's running the way it's supposed to. We're doing self-remediation, and all of that is again, good. So basically, that's what that kind of takes a look at here.
That is super cool. That's I got to tell you, it's the first time I saw it live like that, which that's really powerful. So
yeah,
been working with all different aspects of this technology, but to see that threat remediated from the gateway and the endpoint and how it works together, that is super cool. Ben, we got a couple more minutes, and then we're
sure.
at the max. Is there any last thing you want to say? You want me to take back control as you're finishing up?
Yep, I'm pretty much done. I just wanted to point out here was the email alert that I got as an administrator. So the cloud emailed me and said, here was the event that happened, and so again, all that information is being generated. I'm taking care of it automatically. I guess that's pretty much everything I want to cover. So go ahead and take it away.
All right, awesome. Well, that was a fantastic presentation. Really cool to not only talk about the technology, but to show it and show it effectively and show it remediating in real time. I mean, that's pretty powerful. So. Thanks so much, Ben, for sharing that with us today, and thanks to everybody who joined us. We know your time is valuable, and you took 45 minutes out of your day to spend with us. So we really appreciate it. I'm Todd Obert from Productive, along with Ben Ellering from Sophos, signing off and wishing you a fantastic balance of your day and week, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody.